Magic Kingdom is the Disney World park with the most rides, but is every ride really going to be worth your time? Find out today here on DFB Guide. Hey everybody, it's AJ for Disney Food Blog, and I'm here today to bring you the best and worst rides in Magic Kingdom. Now, it's safe to say that no ride is completely 100% good or bad, except PEOPLEMOVER. That is an incredible gift of a ride, but depending on what you and your group prefer, some rides might need to be slightly higher priority for you than others, and that's what we're going to help you figure out today. If you'd like a full list of everything you need to prioritize for your upcoming Disney World vacation, rides included, after we wrap up here today, go ahead and drop us your email at disneyfoodblog.com/Disney checklists, and we'll make sure to get you a downloadable copy sent straight to your inbox. All right, we're going to start with the best rides in Magic Kingdom. Whether you're looking for thrills or short wait times or dark rides packed with innovation and history, these are the Magic Kingdom rides you're going to want to put at the top of your must-do list. We're going to start with rides for the thrill seekers. Magic Kingdom isn't known for having the most intense coasters out there, but it does have some that'll make sure to get your adrenaline pumping. Like the newest TRON LIGHTCYCLE Run coaster, for instance, which is now open over in Tomorrowland finally. TRON is the first roller coaster in Disney World that you're going to ride as if you were taking a spin on a motorcycle. You'll board a two-wheeled light cycle that literally launches you into an indoor-outdoor digital race against Team Orange. So expect lots of lights and epic music and futuristic effects. The coaster reaches speeds up to 59 miles per hour, which is faster than Rock 'n' Roller Coaster in Disney's Hollywood Studios, but not quite as fast as the acceleration you're going to experience at Test Track and Epcot. Despite its high speeds, the coaster is super smooth and doesn't have any major upside-down loops or intense drops. It's just that initial launch that's really going to get your heart racing. Do note that TRON is the only ride in Magic Kingdom that does not currently have a physical queue line. Instead, you'll need to board a virtual queue at either 7 a.m. or 1 p.m. or 6 p.m. if you're using your extended evening hours benefit as a deluxe resort guest. Virtual queues can be accessed through the My Disney Experience app, which you can learn more about in our 5 tips for scoring a TRON virtual queue spot in Disney World post, now live over on disneyfoodblog.com. I'll link the post down in the description below. Now, a much older coaster just so happens to be next door neighbors with the newbie of the park, and that's Space Mountain. If you're the type of person who needs to close your eyes during the more thrilling rides, Space Mountain's already done that job for you. The coaster is nearly pitch black except for a few light tunnels here and there, so it's difficult to see the track in front of you, especially if you're sitting in the back of the train. The dark helps this coaster feel way faster than it actually is, because in reality you're only going up to 27 miles per hour. Though this one does have sudden drops and sharp turns, it's nothing too intense. The dark is really the biggest factor here. Now, let's talk about the perfect nighttime ride-throughs. Some rides become even more thrilling when you ride them at night. One of the coolest things about the new TRON coaster is the lit canopy grid that lights up blue and orange while your light cycle whizzes on past. But the only time this outdoor grid actually lights up is at night. If you're relying on the virtual queue system to secure a nighttime return window for this ride, that's definitely not going to be a guarantee for you though. The only way you can choose to ride TRON at night is by paying for the opportunity to do so, either by staying in a deluxe resort and using those extended evening hours, which lets you stay up to 2 hours in select parks on select nights after they close for everyone else, or you can pay for an individual lightning lane, which lets you choose your return time and skip the virtual queue process altogether. While individual lightning lanes go live every day for Disney World Resort guests starting at 7 a.m., if you're not a resort guest, you'll have to wait to purchase these once the park opens, which means all the individual lightning lanes could be sold out by then. Just something to consider depending how busy it is when you're there. Big Thunder Mountain Railroad is another must-ride at night. Whether you use a lightning lane or not, you can get in line for this coaster once the sun sets and experience a whole new version of the attraction. The nighttime ambiance adds so much more to the ghost town theming and makes it feel much faster too. Plus, you also might have a view of the fireworks from the vantage points of this coaster if you time your visit just right. Okay, let's talk about the best Disney rides for those old school Disney nostalgic history nuts, right? Because Magic Kingdom is a park that's been in our lives for 51 years now. Carousel of Progress is technically more of a show than a ride, but because it takes place in a rotating theater, that's good enough for me to add it here. Carousel of Progress was originally created by Walt Disney for the 1964 World's Fair. Originally, Walt created this attraction to be a show that would interpret the evolution of electricity, and it was sponsored by General Electric and would continue to be sponsored by them until 1985. Though the original version first opened in Disneyland in 1967, a second version of Carousel of Progress was created for Magic Kingdom per the request of General Electric, and by 1975 it was fully thriving once again in Florida's Tomorrowland. Along with Carousel of Progress, It's a Small World was also created for the 1964 World's Fair for the Pepsi-Cola Company to benefit UNICEF, and it became an original opening attraction for Disney World as well. Walt Disney Imagineer artist Mary Blair created the concept art and doll designs for this happiest cruise that ever sailed, while the Academy Award-winning Sherman Brothers, who composed many pieces for Walt in the past, including music for Mary Poppins, are who you need to blame for that catchy Small World tune. Peter Pan's Flight is located directly across from It's a Small World and has even more history than its neighboring dark ride. This was an OG attraction for Disneyland and actually became quite revolutionary for the dark ride category upon its release. Instead of over-focusing on a dark ride as being something scary, Peter Pan's Flight took guests into the realm of fun and fantasy. It also featured a rather unique track design that pulled guests through the show building from a track above them instead of below them to create that feeling of flying over London and throughout Neverland. But there were some rather big things that Disney did change about the attraction when they opened its second version in Magic Kingdom, including adding scenes with Peter Pan himself. Originally, the ride was designed as if you were seeing it all through the eyes of the Lost Boy, but because Peter's absence threw off a lot of guests, they added him into the Disney World version and later on into the Disneyland version too. And then there's Haunted Mansion over in Liberty Square. Walt Disney was very passionate about the idea of having a retirement home for ghosts in his brand new California park, but because it was hard to really pin down what exactly the story behind this ride would be, or whether it'd actually be a ride or just a walkthrough experience, Haunted Mansion was put on the back burner while Walt and his Imagineers focused on those World's Fair attractions instead. When Walt passed in 1966, Imagineers Mark Davis and Claude Coates, who'd also worked together while creating Pirates of the Caribbean, were left to figure out what exactly was going to happen with this afterlife attraction. And lo and behold, an agreement still couldn't be made on what this ride should actually be. Davis was pulling for a more humorous, lighthearted version of the attraction, and Coates wanted something more somber and frightening. It took Imagineer Ex Atencio saying, why not both, for the light to finally switch on. And that's why we've got the frightening, yet also humorous, Omnimover ride that we know and love today. Alright, moving on to the best rides in Magic Kingdom for the non-riders. This is maybe a contradiction, but what rides should you ride when you or someone in your group doesn't actually like a lot of rides? Like I mentioned earlier, Magic Kingdom's rides are pretty tame and family-friendly, but these are the 5 most tame and non-rider friendly of the bunch. First, you've got the Walt Disney World Railroad, which takes you on a joyride around Magic Kingdom on an authentic steam-powered train. The railroad serves as more of a means of traveling around the park to give your feet a bit of a break, though you can hop aboard just for funsies too. You'll find 3 train stations throughout the park: Main Street USA, Frontierland, and Fantasyland. Then we've got the Liberty Square Riverboat, which is a slow-going, steam-powered riverboat ride around the rivers of America. And though this one is relaxing, there are only a few seats available, which means you might have to stand for the full 20-minute duration. Just something to think about. And if you'd rather sit, then you may be better off grabbing a seat on the PEOPLEMOVER in Tomorrowland. Again, perfect attraction. PEOPLEMOVER not only takes you on an easygoing tour around this kind of futuristic area, but it also shows you unique overhead views of Space Mountain and Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger spin. You'll also be able to see a huge model of Walt Disney's original plans for Epcot. Seriously, just the comfort food of rides. I love this ride. And finally, here's a controversial one: Jungle Cruise over in Adventureland. Though this ride does have quite the adventurous storyline as you travel down exotic rivers to find animatronic animals, it is just as tame can be. No sudden drops, no high speeds, just a lazy little river ride with corny jokes. That said, there is the semi-scary temple that you float through, which is dark and has a bit of a Haunted Mansion vibe with giant spiders and stuff, so keep that in mind for the little ones. Speaking of the little ones, that's who we're going to help next. The great thing about Magic Kingdom's lack of super intense thrill rides is that the majority of the experiences here are going to be family friendly, making them perfect for kids of all ages. But of course, with so many parents on the DFB team, we've got a few favorites. First up, we've got It's a Small World again. again. Not only is It's a Small World rich with Disney history, but its combined smooth sailing ride system, easy to remember tune, and plethora of colorful dolls, 289 of them to be exact, make it a ride that even the smallest member of your group can ride. I have taken an 8-week-old newborn on this ride. And make sure you look up at the beginning of this ride because the window that you see actually looks into Pinocchio Village House, so you can wave at the folks dining on flatbreads and they'll hopefully wave right back. Now, Fantasyland in general is an area where you're going to find tons of great options for brand new riders. Dumbo is an aerial carousel with no height requirement, so anyone can board their own flying elephant, take it out for a spin. Dumbo also has an interactive area where kids don't just have to stand in line to wait for this ride. They can choose to play on the colorful equipment under the big top instead. Parents and guardians will be handed a pager that will alert your group when it's your time to ride the ride. But in the meantime, kids get to climb and play and blow off steam, and the adults get to hang out in the AC. And let's not forget about Winnie the Pooh. The Adventures of Winnie the Pooh Dark Ride takes you in an oversized honeypot through the 100-acre wood. Though this ride is very tame, your honeypot ride vehicle is designed to follow the story elements, so you'll end up bouncing alongside Tigger and floating down the stream when the rain comes down. Not to mention, it's always fun when kids' faces light up after seeing some of their favorite 100-acre wood pals. Just be very, very aware of the heffalumps and woozle scene. This room is cool and very trippy, but it can also be a sensory overload for those who might not be too keen on having a woozle jack-in-the-box hovering that close to them. For kids who are new to the thrill scene, the BARNSTORMER can be a solid introductory junior coaster for riders 35 inches or taller. It's a super duper short ride themed around Goofy and his homemade airplane antics. You'll go up a small lift hill, take some turns and tiny drops, and then land back into the station. But how about the kids who are nervous or aren't yet tall enough for those bigger Tomorrowland coasters? Does that mean they just gotta ride Peoplemover over and over again in this section of the park? Not at all, though I wouldn't blame them if they chose to do that anyways. Kids can get behind the wheel of their very own gas-powered vehicle at the Tomorrowland Speedway and speed around a controlled racetrack. Back when FastPass was a thing and you could get 3 FastPasses a day, the Tomorrowland Speedway was often all 3 of my FastPasses. Or maybe your kiddo wants to rack up points by shooting their blasters at neon targets during Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger spin. There's no shortage of kid-friendly rides in Magic Kingdom, but make sure to check on each ride's height requirements on the Disney World website. All right, we've got some great rides for the animatronic fans. You may love animatronics or you may be completely unsettled by them, but either way, you can't ignore how impressive the technological marvels really are. So if you want to see a lot of animatronics featured in a single attraction, here are 4 rides in particular you're not going to want to miss. Now, some of you may be thinking, AJ, do you really think you have that many people watching your videos who are just like super animatronic fans? And I kind of think I do. So if you're a big animatronic fan, please let me know in the comments so I feel justified in putting this section into this video. Thank you very much. All right, Haunted Mansion, that's going to bring grim grinning ghosts to life with their hundreds of different animatronic specters. You'll encounter spooks like the murderous bride Constance Hatchaway, an array of ghostly ballroom dancers, very persistent hitchhiking ghosts who want to follow you home, and very, very soon, you're also going to see the infamous Hatbox Ghost. The Hatbox Ghost has been around the Haunted Mansion over in Disneyland for quite a few years now, but during last year's D23 convention, we learned this headless specter would be materializing in Magic Kingdom later in 2023, so be on the lookout for him, and we will be too. Both of Adventureland's main rides, Pirates of the Caribbean and Jungle Cruise, rely on tons of animatronics to tell their stories. Inside Pirates, you'll come across 125 audio animatronic figures, including 65 pirates and villagers and 60 animals and birds. Meanwhile, Imagineers developed more than 130 mechanical animals for Disneyland's Jungle Cruise. Then used that same technology when they built their second Jungle Cruise in Magic Kingdom. Fun fact, though Walt actually wanted real animals to be used during this ride, he came across 3 major concerns that kept him and the team from actually pulling it off. First, there wasn't enough space. Second, the majority of the animals he wanted were nocturnal, meaning there was a high probability that guests would ride this attraction and not see anything. And third, it was going to be costly, and Walt was already blowing through his money and life savings like crazy to pull this Mickey Mouse operation off. So, animatronics came in and saved the ride, but the story doesn't end there. In 1998, Disney Imagineers were finally able to pull off Walt's dream of having real animals featured in a totally different attraction, but if you want to check that out, you're going to have to head over to Disney's Animal Kingdom and hop aboard Kilimanjaro Safaris. And And since I already technically called out Carousel of Progress as a show ride, I can't leave it out of this category. The entire 20-minute production is hosted and performed by a family of audio animatronics. During the attraction, you'll meet 8 different characters across 4 scenes, meaning you'll see 32 animatronics total. Can't get enough of the animatronics? Then let me throw in a bonus Magic Kingdom experience for ya. Hall of Presidents over in Liberty Square is that 25-minute production that has quite the grand reveal in its 180-degree theater. Every president that's ever served in the US has their own audio animatronic with their own unique movements, making for quite an impressive display that you're going to want to check out at least once. Now, our next group of best rides are for those who hate waiting in line. You are never going to find me saying, oh boy, I can't wait to go to Magic Kingdom and wait in all the lines. So I'm going to assume we're on the same page. I am not going to sugarcoat it though. Magic Kingdom's ride lines can get painfully long. Fortunately, there are a few rides we can usually turn to with waits that are consistently relatively short. Under the Sea, Journey of the Little Mermaid lives over in Fantasyland and is a slow-moving ride that lets you be a part of Ariel's world as she sells her legs to a sea witch, all in the name of love. Because this ride uses a constantly running Omnimover system, the lines usually average around 15 to 20 minutes, making it a decent ride to hit up when all the other ones are pushing that hour wait mark. Another reason why it's maybe not that popular, it's way at the back of the park and you kind of have to pass everything else to get there. So chances are something else is going to grab your attention before you get all the way back to Ariel. Now, if you're a fan of spinning teacup rides, Fantasyland also has the Alice in Wonderland themed Mad Tea Party. That tends to average 5 to 15 minute waits. And then there's the Magic Kingdom's Carousel lineup, featuring not only Dumbo, but also the Magic Carpets of Aladdin in Adventureland, Astro Orbiter in Tomorrowland, and Prince Charming Regal Carousel in Fantasyland. These rides may have similar ride mechanics, but they also normally have wait times that won't push over the 30-minute range, except for Astro Orbiter, which can be more popular than the others considering it's higher up and more thrilling. Now, big disclaimer here, just because these rides usually have shorter waits doesn't mean they always do. Busier times of the year, like 4th of July weekend or Labor Day weekend or the week of Thanksgiving, will experience higher than average crowd levels, meaning the rides that usually have lower waits could also be seeing quite the influx of guests. Those peak seasons may be a good time to consider adding the Genie Plus feature to your Magic Kingdom day. That way you can access the lightning lanes of most rides and attractions for a surge price between $15 and $29 per day per guest. To learn more about that service, make sure to check out our Outsmarting Disney Genie Plus video, now live on the DFB channel. All right, our next best ride. Listen, I don't know what your weird ride criteria may entail, but if passing a kidney stone is on your list, then I've got the ride for you. As it turns out, it's been scientifically proven that riding Big Thunder Mountain can indeed help you pass a kidney stone. Yep, you heard it here. Dr. David Bordinger, a urologist and professor emeritus in the Department of Osteopathic Surgical Specialties at Michigan State, conducted this experiment by creating a synthetic 3D model of a hollow kidney with 3 kidney stones no larger than 4 millimeters inside. Then he took the fake kidney onto Big Thunder Mountain Railroad 20 times. What he discovered after it was all said and done gave Big Thunder a passing grade, if you know what I'm saying. Apparently, by sitting on the back row of this ride, the fake kidney stones had a 64% passage rate. And that's why they call this place the most magical place on earth, my friends. In all seriousness though, if you are dealing with a medical situation while you're in the parks, hopping on a ride that's going to roughhouse you isn't usually the solution. Make sure you visit Magic Kingdom's First Aid Center or call 911 if you're experiencing a medical emergency that needs to be addressed ASAP. All right, we're at the second half of this video. We're going to talk about the worst rides in Magic Kingdom. Now, if you don't want to waste your time in Magic Kingdom with rides that might embarrass your teens, make you nauseous, or have you stand in lines that just aren't worth the payoff, then you're probably going to want to skip these ones. First up, and I know you might riot in the comments, I understand, we're going to talk about the boring Magic Kingdom rides. Disney rides are rarely boring, but that doesn't mean they can't be very repetitive and monotonous. Take the plethora of carousels, for instance. They were in our best rides for certain folks, but definitely worst rides for others. They each have vastly different themes. They all accomplish the same objective. They spin you around slowly over and over again. That being said, these rides are usually fairly short, and by the way, we're talking about like Dumbo and the Magic Carpets of Aladdin and Astro Orbiter and the Carousel. And their easygoing ride system makes them much more accessible for families. But if you've only got so much time in Magic Kingdom and you're trying to figure out which rides to prioritize, one of these carousels is more than enough. No need to get in line for the other 3. And since we've already talked a lot about It's a Small World during the course of this video, it's now time to throw it under the bus, or perhaps the boat. The first time you hear that happy-go-lucky song about a world of laughter and a world of cheer, it's great, it's adorable. But hearing it on a loop for 10 minutes and maybe even longer if the boats are backed up, leaving you to wait in that final ride scene until you can finally escape, I'm sorry, but it's inevitable. The song will get stuck in your head, you will be forced to relive it even after your trip wraps up. So if you don't want to have a chorus of children singing in your head for weeks on end post-vacation, and if maybe a slow-moving boat ride with over 200 dolls is not your jam, you may want to skip out on this one just for the sake of your mental health. And I know it's a classic, obviously, you just talked about it earlier in this video, I get it. Go watch it on YouTube for as long as you want to, and then you can at least, talk about it at the cocktail party. You don't actually have to ride it. All right, here are the worst rides for super apprehensive riders. The majority of Magic Kingdom's rides are designed for the whole family to enjoy together, but there are still some rides in this park that are going to get your heart pounding a little too much for your liking. You know those thrill rides we mentioned earlier? Those aren't the most intense coasters in all of Orlando, but they still rattle you around pretty well. We talked about the kidney stone thing, right? So you've got moments of pitch blackness in Space Mountain, a major launch on Tron, and turns very, very sharp on Big Thunder Mountain Railroad that your body might slide across the seat and knock you against your ride buddy. There's nothing more embarrassing than riding Big Thunder Mountain with someone you have a crush on or somebody that you don't know very well, because you're just like the whole time trying to not smoosh into them in the middle of the ride because of those tight turns, right? Am I the only one? It's always really embarrassing to me. Okay, never mind. Now, for those who have a fear of heights, you might find it best to steer clear of Astro Orbiter, the tallest of all of those aerial carousels. Astro Orbiter is located above PEOPLEMOVER, meaning you got to take an elevator to get to it. And once you board your rocket ship, you'll be spinning around at a possible max height of 80 feet in the air, which is around the same height as the drop on Expedition Everest over in Animal Kingdom. So if you're trying to choose one of the aerial carousels, this might be the one to pass on if you want an experience that's less intimidating. And then, of course, our good friend Haunted Mansion. Yep, the Haunted Mansion has lots of jokes and gags throughout the ride to get a good chuckle, but it still doesn't take away from the fact that you're surrounded by ghosts, one in which is going around decapitating all her former husbands. Not gonna point fingers or anything. And the stretching room pre-show can get kiddos really freaked out before the ride even begins. So if you want to see how your kids react to certain attractions before your trip, sit down with them and watch through some POV videos online. That way they're going to know what to expect, and you can gauge from their reaction whether it's going to be worth standing in line for it or not. Now, we all have our Haunted Mansion story that we were either terrified of it as children or we loved it as kids, right? I think it's an either or. So let me know in the comments which one you were. And our friends over at All Ears, their channel is All Ears TV. They have full POV videos of Haunted Mansion and all the other rides at Magic Kingdom. So be sure to check them out and tell them we say hello. All right, next set of worst rides. It's all fun and games until you've spun one too many times or you've taken one too many sharp turns and your head is screaming at you to make it stop. We're going to talk about the rides that can actually make you sick. So rides like Mad Tea Party, even Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger Spin if you're sharing a vehicle with someone who's a little heavy-handed on the spinning mechanic. Could be less fun and more of a tummy ache in the making for those prone to motion sickness. Coasters can also be rough. Good rule of thumb for any coaster is to sit closer to the front of the train for a smoother ride through. Back rows tend to be way more rough because the momentum from the front of the coaster is yanking the back end of the train along with greater force. For some, it's back row or bust, but for others, a back row ride can lead to neck pains and headaches for the rest of the day. If you know you're sensitive when it comes to certain ride types but you don't want to miss out, make sure to pack those over-the-counter meds in your park bag before your trip. But even if you forget, swing by Magic Kingdom's First Aid between the Crystal Palace and Casey's Corner off Main Street, USA, so that a medical cast member can provide you with non-emergency relief that you're searching for. Next, we're going to talk about those long lines that just are not worth it, right? If you go to Magic Kingdom and you want to accomplish as many rides as possible in one day, you're going to have to wait in lines at some point or another. But is every Magic Kingdom ride going to leave you going, wow, that was well worth the hour-long wait? Probably not. Take Peter Pan's Flight, for example. Now, we love Peter Pan's Flight. It's whimsical and innovative and makes your heart all happy afterwards, right? There's a giant dog in it. We love Nana. But waits for this one, on average, push well over the hour mark, and that's for a 3-minute long ride. A single song on the radio can be longer than that. Thankfully, Peter Pan's Flight has a pretty cool standby queue that takes you through the darling children's nursery where Tinkerbell is busy rummaging about, tossing items, and lighting up various corners of the room. You can see if you can find her when you're in there. And there's also a brief interactive experience where you can bring your own shadow to life on the nursery wall and have it interact with other shadow items. But other than that, this wait can feel kind of claustrophobic, and because this ride is prone to temporary closures, you might wind up waiting even longer than you anticipated. If you've got some Peter Pan fans in your family, this could be a good one to prioritize getting a lightning lane for. Now, you know those 2 Tomorrowland rides I mentioned that kids are gonna love? Well, here's another truth bomb for you. Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger spin in Tomorrowland Speedway can be great, but I personally would not wait over 30 minutes to experience either one. If you've already been to Disney's Hollywood Studios and went on Toy Story Mania, then you've been on what I believe is the superior Toy Story Blaster attraction, what with its multiple carnival-style levels and video game-like immersion. And yet, Space Ranger Spin can still have waits that push the 45-plus minute range. What's even more disappointing is when you finally board your Space Ranger Spin ride vehicle and your blaster doesn't even work. This does not happen often, but it has happened to us a couple of times, and that's a giant bummer. If that happens to you, be sure to talk to a cast member. They should be able to let you go back through and ride again. As far as Tomorrowland Speedway is concerned, it's fun to see your kids get behind the wheel and take a joyride, but all in all, there's not much else going on for this ride. Not to mention that queue line is awful, there's nothing to look at, it's hot, and it smells so strongly of gasoline. Plus, if your kid's anything like my kid and you put him behind a wheel, you're basically gonna get whiplash the whole time. I highly recommend parents that you go ahead and drive the car until your kid is like 5 or 6. I'm just saying, this has been my experience. So let me know what's happened with you. If your kids are great drivers when they're 3, I want to know about it. If you want to get in line for any of these rides but skip over the massive waits, you may want to try hitting them up either at the very beginning or very end of the park day, if you decide against Lightning Lanes and Genie Plus, that is. You can also keep track of current and forecasted wait times for the rides on your My Disney Experience app. Just head over to the tip boards and scroll through the rides and attractions list for real-time updates throughout the day. Now, let's talk about teenagers. I love you, teenagers. You're some of my favorite people. But if you've got teens in your family, Magic Kingdom as a whole is either going to be a hit or a miss. Hate to say it, but kids grow up, and the same kids that used to be over the moon thrilled riding BARNSTORMER and the many adventures of Winnie the Pooh may not feel the same way about them once they get older, especially if they have boyfriend or girlfriend at home that they just want to text the whole day, right? Right. Thrill rides like TRON, Space Mountain, Big Thunder Mountain, those are going to be popular with a tween and teen crowd, and Haunted Mansion will more than likely sustain itself too, because what better way to reconnect with the too cool for school crowd than by drawing them back with a classic ghost story. But if you want to win some points with your adrenaline junkie tweens and teens, you may be better off spending your money on a different Orlando park like Universal Studios. They've got award-winning coasters, multiple launches, upside-down tracks, giant drops, and plenty of airtime. Before you book your Disney vacation, talk to your family and find out their personal theme park preferences, because it's absolutely stomach-churning when you try to surprise your kids with a super expensive Disney World vacation and they're bummed about it, right? Okay, it happens. So now that we've shown you the good, the bad, and the people mover sides of Magic Kingdom, it's time for you to create your own list of top priority rides for your upcoming trip. Just remember, if you need a cheat sheet to look back on as you build your Disney World itinerary, email us at disneyfoodblog.com/Disney checklists, and you'll get a full list of Disney park activities that you can pack your days with. Or you can just get in line for People Mover over and over and over again. I will see you there. Thanks for listening, everyone, and thanks for watching. As always, this is AJ for Disney Food Blog, and we'll see you real soon.